Okay, now first what I'll show you is, we look for voluntary kinds of things. I told you with some flexibility. I don't know if the lights could go down a little bit here. Is that possible? But some of these films are not so great, but they're a little bit blurry. But okay, so now I'm going to show you one that has a pretty high emotion associated with it and is therefore fairly fixed. This is more fixed than most of the other ones you're going to see, but I wanted to show you first what a more fixed one looks like. What you're going to see is you're going to see this guy go over to another one. There's been a fight. This is an appeasement. And this wrist thing like this. The wrist thing is seen in a lot of different species. It's a lot less flexible, and it's a borderline one. We include it in our things, but it's not very flexible, so we don't like it very much, but it's there. Okay, so you'll see her going over to another, and you'll see the screaming, you see and then you see this thing like this. Okay? All right, so that's pretty inflexible all told, but that's basically a gesture that's on the borderline for us about whether it's flexible enough to be considered what we're doing. So now here's one that I think you'll see. This is a kind of an intention movement thing. Here's a youngster who wants to get this mom to go walking. Now this is not really pulling. This is an abbreviated pulling. Okay? Now, okay, so I think you can see there how deliberate that is. That is to say, look at it again. The infant is not really actually tugging. It's okay? It's abbreviated. It's not physical. Okay, and now we're going to do this walking thing together. This tandem walk is something they do quite regularly. All right, and with the baby putting the arm on mom and walking like that. We call it arm on, actually. Okay. Now here's the mom wanting the infant to come with her, and this has got a little more of the real thing. This is showing you the thing where it actually might come from. So she actually pulls. See, actually physically pulls the baby. And now the kid takes off a little bit, and a little bit there, and then, okay. So I showed you this one because this one is a little less, it's not even clear it's ritualized. I'm really kind of doing it. But what happens is from these kind of activities, I'm trying to pull you where I want you to go, you get a ritualized thing, which is the kind of pulling like this. And in fact, the people who talked about iconic gestures in gorillas actually are talking about one gorilla wanting the other one to come, and they're going like this, but I think it's just a ritualization of pulling. So it's iconic to us. This is the direction I want you to go in, but it's not iconic for the gorilla. It's just I'm trying to pull you, and then that gets ritualized. Okay, and then this is something in the direction of arm raise for play. You're going to see a little sequence here where these are two youngsters playing, and they do this kind of head bobbing and arm raising. This arm raise here, it's not a great arm raise. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute. But and then you'll see the head bob, which is another play thing like this. Okay. Okay, so again, I would say notice the flexibility. These certainly give you the impression of being voluntary and being possible to be inhibited. And then this is not a video, it's just a picture, but this is a better picture of the arm raise when it becomes really ritualized and they really do this to initiate play. And our criterion in making these observations is what we call response waiting. So they have to give it and wait for the response. If they give it and then automatically do it, that other one was again a little bit borderline, they have to give it and wait for the response. Okay, so intention movement, those are in the direction of intention movements. Now let's talk about attention getters. So attention getters this is what we had mixed up. They use attention getters quite a lot to initiate play. And by attention getters, I mean they're auditory attention getters. Okay, see, I saw some people sleeping there. I'll woke them up. Okay, all right, so they're auditory attention getters. There could be visual attention getters, but there are also tactile ones where I tap you on the back or something. If the guy's back is turned, I can tap you on the back or something like that. Okay, and attention getters, I used to think that they were play gestures, and we had them classified as play gestures in our early studies. But I started thinking about it more, and that's not what's happening. What they're doing is they're in the mood to play. Or in the wild, there are examples of adult males who are in a sexual mood, which displays itself in an erect penis. And so I've got a display that's part of my mood, but you're not looking at me. Right? So I need you to look at me, and then you'll know that I want to play, because I have the play posture. I'm like this, I'm ready to play, or I'm ready to have sex, one or the other. Okay? So that doesn't have meaning itself. That is, look at me. And if you look at me, then so I have a display, and I know that you normally react to that display, but you're not looking, so you have to look at me for it to work. All right? And so I think that they don't have it themselves. And now, if you just think about it just a little bit, now we're getting in the direction, when you think about humans, we're getting in the direction of things that are more deictic, like pointing, and things which are just pointing is me directing your attention in a direction, to a location, versus contentful symbols. So I would say intention movements are tied to an activity, like this is tied to play, and touching the back is tied to writing on the back. This isn't tied to anything, okay? This is more general, deictic, look at me. Right? So here's an attention getter. The mom is sleeping and the baby wants to play or nurse or something. I'm not really sure what she wants to do. And this, she's going to actually throw stuff at her, okay? You won't be able to see it so great, but so mom's not being very attentive here. Kid's going to come around in front to make sure she can see me. She's still not attending, and so she's going to throw some stuff at her. You can't see it in the film very well, but she throws stuff to wake her up so she'll play. So they throw stuff quite often when the other one's back is turned. In this case, her eyes are closed and she's sleeping, and they want to play. They take a handful of these wood chips or dirt, and they throw it at the other one like that. That gets their attention, and they then play. Okay, here's another one. This one you're going to see... this is a mom, obviously, with her baby going here. This guy is going to watch, this female is going to watch her go past, and after she's not looking anymore, I've used this one before about attending to the other one's visual attention. After she's not looking, she's going to whack her, and then they're going to start the play. So, now watch, she'll turn, she'll look, she's looking, but now she turns and looks the other way, and now we get a whack. Okay? She hits her on the back, and that initiates play. Right? So that's of course, that's about as basic as you can get. I'm going to whack you, okay? Hard to call that communication. But you're not looking and you're not attending, so I'm going to hit you and then you'll know, and then we'll start the play sequence. This one happens kind of quickly, but I don't have a good one of the hitting the ground, but this one, the reason it happens a little too quickly because he doesn't get a chance to hit the ground, but here's what the ground slap looks like. There. Okay, he only got to slap one time, but sometimes they slap the ground multiple times with either one hand or two hands to get the owner's attention. But what you see here is that the little one goes past and has his back turned, and when the back is turned, he slaps the ground to get his attention, but it all happens too fast, and he turns around, and he doesn't really need to do it. But in any case, that's another attention getter. Now here, you can tell me if you can decide what the function of wait a minute, I'm going to do one other thing here. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to say one other thing, and this is going to be a borderline example. Okay, so in the wild, you get things like leaf clipping from adult males. The adult male has an erection. He wants the female to pay attention to it, and there are these leaves that really make a lot of noise, and they go with them like that. They slap the ground. They do all kinds of things. The ones in captivity often slap the side of the cage and whatnot. Okay, so, and I said those get their meaning from the display itself. Now, there's another thing they do that's kind of similar, which is drawing attention to a body part, or sometimes even to an object that they have, and it's not quite the same as a display. So the display already has the meaning inherent in it from Mother Nature, has built that in already. And so now I'm going to show you several examples of things where they make sure that another person sees a body part of theirs, in which case the other person will know what to do. So here you can tell me which body part this male wants the female. The female's in estrus there. Okay, and so no, obviously that's not actually doing it, right? That's trying to get attention that I'm in the mood okay, I'm in the mood and you should notice that and be receptive. So she's not looking. See, she was looking up there. When she looks down, as soon as she looks down, he comes around and starts the sexual sequence. Okay, now here's an interesting little thing. I have offer in question marks beside it because this is a request for grooming. Sorry. I'm not sure what's happening to that. Well, something funny. I've tested it before. Something funny is happening here. Okay. Well, something funny has happened to her. But what she does is she comes up to the other one and she wants to be groomed, and she holds her shoulder like this. Holds the shoulder right in front of her and wants to be groomed on that shoulder apparently. Here's another one that's a little dark. I'm sorry, I've made this as light as I can. It's a little dark. But you're going to see a kind of a jumping up and down to solicit grooming. The one on the right here is going to jump up and down and turn back, wanting to be groomed on the back. So I'm showing you my back, and I want you to groom me on the back. All right, we'll give it one more chance. No, okay, I can come back to it later if I have to. And here's an observation that's really unique. I've never seen anything quite like this in chimps or bonobos or gorillas, only in orangutans. And this is not just a one-off observation. I've seen this several dozen times. This is the closest thing to an offer I've ever seen in an ape. But again, he does it regularly. So he's eating the peanut. He's eating the peanut. This is the big adult male. He's eating the peanut, but the shell, not just the shell, but also the husk, it's sort of edible, not the shell, but I don't know what you call it. But anyway, and so what he's going to do is when he's done with it, he's going to offer it up to the female. Okay? And the little baby takes it, and he does that on a number of occasions. Okay, so this is an attention getter. These attention getters, I don't think they're offers in the human analysis of offer, but it's a slight variation on attention getters where I want you to attend to me because I'm in a play mood or a sexual mood. It's I want you to attend to this, and then you'll know to groom it, or I want you to, and I'm doing this, look at this. So I'm not sure what the right analysis of this behavior is. It's so unique, but in any case, I would say, in general, to obtain attention to a body part for grooming, play, or food. So you could say that what they're doing here is essentially a claim of attention. I want you to attend. Now, I have here in dark quotes, just to be controversial, is this a Gricean claim of attention? And I think the answer is no, it's not. It's not a Gricean claim of attention because it's not, I want you to know that I'm communicating. It's that I know you need to see this. But still, it's moving in that direction. All it is, it doesn't have anything about mutual manifestness. It doesn't have any of that kind of dimension to it at all. But it says, I know you have to see it for it to work. So I only do this when you're watching. And these things are one step more. It's not just, I know you have to see it. It's that I want you to see it. So I'm going to try to make you see it by sticking it in front of your face. And when I stick it in front of your face and you see it, I expect you to behave accordingly. So again, this paying attention to the attention of the recipient is a critical component in everything they do. And again, we have several studies where we show them doing this kind of thing, where they're attending to the attention of the recipient. Now, we also looked at the gesture sequences they produced, and we wondered, would they ever do something like get your attention and then give the more contentful visually based gesture? And this would be almost like a topic focus kind of thing, like this is, I'm getting your attention and then I'm going to do this. And the answer is no, they don't do that. So they don't produce gesture sequences where the first one is get you to attend and the second one is produce the gesture. But they do walk around in front of the other one to make sure that he sees it and things like that. Okay, so to sum up the comparison of ape gestures and vocalizations, ape gestures are more cognitively sophisticated and closer to language than vocalizations. Than in monkeys. I didn't document that for you here, but they are. Whereas vocals communication, I would say, if anything, it's the opposite. If anything, some monkeys have much more sophisticated vocalizations than apes. But these are not conventions. I think Ruth Millikan was here a few years ago talking about some of these things. These are not conventions. They're not shared. They're only one way. They're not imitated. And again, the meaning is inherent in them. And so you don't have to connect to them. But there's no pointing. Apes don't point. I have a paper that I gave at a conference Dan was at before called Why Don't Apes Point? So I'm going to get to that in just a second. But in their interactions with one another, they don't point. There's no iconic gestures like do this or get me the one that goes like this, not even when they want something. And none of this is collaborative. And I'm just setting this up now for later with humans. None of this is collaborative in the sense that there's no negotiation of meaning and like, what did you mean? So there's no repair sequences, no request for clarification or anything along those lines. So those are things that indicate that I understand that we're communicating and I need to repair the message in some way. I need to get clarification. We need to collaborate together to make sure I get the message, and we don't see anything like that. You'll see nothing in any non-human animals that would be look like a request for clarification or a repair. So I know it seems kind of crazy to think of that as being really sophisticated, but is actually a fairly sophisticated thing that we do. Okay, great apes and pointing. I forgot exactly when we started, but I think I've got about 10 or 15 minutes or so because we started at about 20 after, I think. So great apes and pointing. I just told you great apes don't point for one another, and they don't in the wild. But great apes do point for humans. And they seem to learn how to do this. About 60 to 70% of captive chimps will point imperatively for humans. This is the work of Levins and Hopkins, and they had a big group at Yerkes of 100 chimps, and about 60 or 70% of them will point. And it's basically, they're in the cage, the food is on the ground out there, and the human walks by, and they come over and they put their kind of hand in, and they go, and they sometimes vocalize, and they go like this. Typically their hand is through the cage. Chimps raised by humans, like Kanzi and others who are raised with sign language, the report is that they learn to point without being taught specifically. Okay? It's kind of an ethnographic report. We don't have a controlled study, but the ethnographic report is they point without being taught. And we even have a study where the study is, this is called in Tomasello 94, it's indicated on your handout in abbreviated form. So if I have to use a tool to rake in and get you food, you're the chimp, and I rake in the food and get it for you. Now I leave the room, you can hear a theory of mind all over the place coming here. I leave the room, somebody else hides the tool, either over there, over there, over there. I come back in, and in fact, I really don't know where it is. I'm blind, okay? I'm absolutely blind. I don't know where you hid the tool. I look at the food, I say, I'd love to give it to you, but I can't get to it. I need the tool, and they point to the tool that you need to go get it for them. Right? So it's not just food they point for. The ones that are raised by humans also they can point where food was hidden hours ago as well. The ones that are raised by humans can, we had a few in Leipzig that were raised by humans, and I interacted with them directly for a couple of years. And it's quite common for them to grab you by the hand and pull you over to the door so you'll open the door. Or to give you, they can't open something, and they put it in your lap and look at you expecting you to open it. Right? So they give you things that they want you to do something to. They bring you to places where they want you to do something. An analogy here would be something like tool use. This is started with Bates et al. Talk about social tool use. Communication is social tool. I'm using you as a tool to open the door. I'm using you as a tool to open this box for me. And so they know that you're an agent that makes things happen in the world, and they know that if they get you to see something, that you'll do your thing. So this is a more sophisticated version of holding up this like this to the other guy, because this is all dyadic, and this is a more triadic version of look at that food there and you'll get it for me, or come to the door and you'll open it for me. So they know you're a causal agent and that you'll make something happen if they put you in the right position. But they do this pointing when they want something, but there's no declarative pointing. That is the kind of thing that human babies do right from the beginning, and you'll hear about this if you come on Thursday. Human babies, right from the beginning, not later, but from the very first points, they just go, ah, ah. Just isn't that interesting? It's a declarative point. Or human babies will point to inform you of something. So we've done experiments, and again, I'll talk about these on Thursday, where you drop something and the baby goes, You dropped something. Okay? And it's for your benefit, not for theirs. They don't want it themselves. They're just telling you that you dropped it. So this is altruistic pointing, if you will. So to inform and to share. And those things are present from human infants pre-linguistically, but the chimps don't do these at all. So at the top of the last page of the handout, I ask in bold here, what are these points? And the answer is we don't know yet. We're still trying to figure it out. But they're pointing for humans and not conspecifics. And one quite simple explanation is, if they pointed for a conspecific to food, guess what the conspecific would do? The conspecific would pick it up and eat it themselves. They wouldn't get up and hand it to them. So humans are helpful, and they know this, and conspecifics are competitors, and they know this. So why would I point for you? Why would I point out something interesting for you? You're just going to use it for your benefit. There's no way you're going to be helping me out here. Right? So this kind of pointing, you can say that one really interesting evolutionary possibility is that once humans got a more cooperative environment, that is, once, let's just say, you know, all of a sudden the people around me start getting more cooperative, I don't need any new cognitive machinery to say, get me that. I just need you to be helpful. This is one implication, that the chimps don't point for one another, but they do point when they're with helpful humans, or when they've been around helpful humans for a while, not on day one, but when they've been around humans for a while. So all they have to do is learn that they've got helpful people around them, and the pointing doesn't require, imperative pointing doesn't require any extra cognitive machinery. I would say it's prepared for by this kind of thing and this kind of thing. Right? So I think you could get step one in human evolution is when you get a more cooperative social group, you can already get me that, help me with that, do this. You can get that form of communication without anything extra from apes. But you're not going to get, isn't that interesting, and you dropped your wallet. Okay? You're not going to get those without something extra. Right? Okay, now here is, you may not think much of that explanation, because it's, I'd say, pretty trivial, but comprehending pointing. Now here's something that really has surprised us. We've done zillions of experiments. I'd say we've done about 10, and Povinelli and others have done some. And apes, when you hide food from them in one of several locations, they know the food is in one location, they know they only get one choice, we have all kinds of control conditions showing this, and you say to the ape, okay, they know you're helpful. We even set up a script where I show it to you first visually, so I do it a few times so you know that I'm being helpful. I'm trying to tell you that I'm helpful. I show it to you, I show it to you. Now, I just point. Believe it or not, they don't have a clue where it is. You go, and they don't know. You can eyebrow flash, you can do anything you want. They don't care, right? They absolutely, and some people say, well, if you're competitive, they think you're trying to fool them. But they don't systematically choose the other one. Okay, it's not like button, which hand is it? They don't choose the other. They choose randomly. Right? What is going on there? Kids are good at this, as I'll tell you on Thursday. Kids are good at this from pre-linguistically from 12 to 14 months of age. It's trivial for them. Now, here's what I think is going on. If you just pointed to food, the chimp would see the food and go get it. But as soon as it's in the bucket, you've got a Spurberian problem here. He has to figure out what's relevant about the bucket. My interpretation is this. The chimp can follow your point and your gaze. We have a lot of experiments showing that. You point to the bucket. The chimp goes, a bucket. Boring. That's what the chimp does. What the 12-month-old baby does, the 12-month-old baby has read his Spurberian Wilson 1985, 86, and he looks at the bucket and he says, I'm looking for food. She's helping me. The point must be relevant. Oh, I bet the food is in the bucket. Okay? So the 12-month-old baby is going beyond the bucket to make the inference that this point must be relevant to my searching activity, and therefore the food is in there. Right? The ape does not make this inference, and therefore is lost. So why doesn't he make the inference? I'm going to come back to this tomorrow because I'm going to try to fill in a lot of the human components of pointing and understanding pointing, and once we got those components, I can spell out that explanation a little bit more. So I'm going to come back and try to say exactly what chimps do and don't have, but I can't do that until I get all the components, which I'll do next time. Basically, here's a study that really brings this into relief, and that is the following. We do this. We had the chimps, and in one case we did exactly the same thing. We pointed to the bucket, and they were clueless. They were at chance. Then we set up a situation where there are two buckets here, and there's a plexiglass panel, and it was also there in the one where I point, and I stick my hand through and I point, and here's the behavior when I point. I go like this. Okay, gaze alternation pointing to the bucket. And I could reach, okay, so in the reaching version, this is the competitive version, Hare and Tomasello 2004 or 5, there's a hole in it, and I reach toward the bucket. So I never reference you at all. First I set up a competitive relationship with you in a kind of a pretest. You reach for food and I grab it away, you reach for food and I grab it away, so we're competing for food. Then there are two buckets, and food's in one of them, and you know it, and I, without even referencing you, I reach for the food like this, but my hand is it's a plexiglass thing, and I can't reach. Like this, okay? So now, on the surface, we've got a similar behavior. We got my arm extended toward the bucket in both cases. But now, believe it or not, when I'm reaching for it, now they know where the food is. Now, why do they know where the food is there? Is because I think the process is the following. They know what your goal is. They can read goals. They can read what you're trying to do. So they're saying, he wants in that bucket, there must be something good in there. Because he wouldn't want it if there wasn't something good. So he wants good things. As a general principle, he wants in the bucket, there must be something good in there. There's no informative intention. Whereas when I do this, it's like, to understand this, what the 12-month-old has to understand is, he's altruistically informing me of the location of the food. When you do this for the chimps in the wild never experience anyone going to them, oh, here's some food, I think I'm not hungry right now, why don't you take it? Okay? That does not happen. They don't have any experience with that. So, cooperatively, altruistically informing them of the location of food that I could take for myself just does not compute. Whereas I want to get in there, computes. And then they can make the inference. So they don't have any problem making the inference. And we've got, Joseph Carr has done a number of studies on them making inferences from various kinds of cues. So they can make the inference about that, but it doesn't have the shared intentionality, the cooperativeness, and all that. All right, so I'm going to come back to that next time. And there's another experiment that I don't have time to explain, but is similar to that, and I'll come back to that tomorrow, because again, I think with this experiment, the fact that infants find this so trivial and chimps find it difficult, and we have a couple of variations on it, I think is going to help us to draw a very sharp line about exactly what they comprehend and what they don't comprehend of the components of a cooperative communicative act. And what I'm going to argue next time, as it says on the handout, is that they're not missing an understanding and intentionality. They know that you have goals and perceptions. What they're missing is shared intentionality, joint attention, communicative intentions, relevance, cooperative motive to share. That's the part they're missing, the shared part. Not the understanding you're an intentional being with goals and that you want things, but it's that you somehow want to share with me and inform me of things cooperatively and so forth. Okay, I have a sidebar on domestic dogs. That the sidebar is because you never know how long your lecture is going to last, and I think I'm out of time to come to my conclusion, so I won't have time to talk about dogs. But dogs are special. Those of you who are dog lovers, the dogs are special. But that have grown up to be effective in human society, and that's human children, humans, and dogs. And again, other domesticated animals have mainly just do what I tell you to do, like don't cause any trouble, stay in a group, whatever. If you're a cat, eat the mice, please, and stay out of the way. But dogs, herding, hunting. And there's actually a recent study with some hunter-gatherer group that when they take dogs with them hunting, all other things being equal, party size and prey and all that, the hunters are 50% more successful if they have a dog with them. So dogs are really useful, and for them going where you want them to do and communicating is really useful. So I bring that in because I don't want it to be that it's just this, evolutionary ladder up to humans or whatever. Some species coming from a completely different place could do some things in this direction. I don't think dogs understand full communicative intentions. I don't believe that for a moment. But I think they're going in that direction, and that's another place where we can get some angle on it to try to see maybe pull apart the components if we can find out what components they do and don't have. Okay, so let me then summarize in my last point on the handout here, 1.3, ape gestures, and I focus mainly on chimpanzees, but we've studied all 4 great apes, but we've done more with chimpanzees. With chimps, we've done more of the experiments on whether they can see what you are paying attention to what you can see and all that sort of thing. So ape gestures do represent a case of what I would call intentional communication. That term has had various definitions, and I don't really like definitional wrangling. By intentional communication, I simply mean flexible, and pursuing goals. They have a goal when they produce it. They can flexibly pursue that goal. If you don't, I didn't really emphasize the combinations here, but they do gesture sequences or combinations where if you don't do it, I give you another one right after it, and that's the definition of goal-directed action, is that I want you to do something, and if you don't respond, then I'm going to try something different until you do what I want you to do. So it's intentional communication, and it's flexible, and it has a large component of audience design. That is, it's used differently depending on the attentional state of the audience. And again, I do things like walk around in front of you and do other things to get your attention, which don't happen in vocal communication at all. It's based on understanding of the goals and perceptions of others. Again, I don't want to get too deeply into it. I'll get more into it on Thursday, but we make a difference between understanding goals and understanding intentions, and we make a difference between understanding perception and understanding attention, basically having to do with choice. But I'm going to get to that on Thursday. But at the very least, apes understand goals and perceptions of others. In vocalizations, I don't think they need to. You know, somebody's screaming, ah! Okay, that's and I hear the call for the other predator or whatever. I don't need to understand the goal or anything of the other guy. Intention movements, the function or the meaning is inherent. If you understand the goals of others, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that, he gives an abbreviated part of it, he gives the first part of the sequence, here's what I know he's trying to do. So if I understand your goal and I see the first part of it, I know what's coming because I know what you're trying to do. You don't have to do that. You could learn it in a kind of an associationistic way, but I don't think that's what they're doing. And so again, I think it's also important when we think about something like meaning. Wittgenstein warned us a long time ago not to think of meaning as a thing, and I think here's where a place you really see it, that it's inherent in the signal, the ritualized signal itself. And then attention getters, the function or meaning is inherent if you understand the displays, because I'm drawing your attention to the display, or possibly I'm drawing your attention to my shoulder where you're supposed to groove me. So again, we don't have to attach signals to meanings because signals are coming out of natural social interactions. Okay, so ape gestures are based on an understanding of the other as an intentional agent. They're flexible, audience design. But they're not cooperative communication because they're not underlain by skills and motivations of shared intentionality. So the gestures that they use are one way because they're not imitated, they're not shared or bidirectional or intersubjective, they're not collaborative, there's no request for clarification or anything like that. So they're not cooperative, they're not what Herb Clark calls coordination devices. They're symbols as coordination devices. They're not coordination devices in the sense that we've got two roles and I'm adjusting. It's a one-way thing, boom. Okay, and but when you put apes with a helpful partner, it leads apes to what I will call, and I will make this distinction more clearly tomorrow, individual imperatives. So what you see is they do this, do that. And their regular gestures are do this, do that. When they're with humans, they say do this, like get me the food, do that, do this, do that. And so if they're with helpful partners, they can learn to tell others what to do that will help them because the other will do it. But again, they're not cooperative in the sense that they don't either produce or understand when you give them a cooperative / altruistic informing them where the food is, or they don't say, oh, look, isn't that interesting? And although they would follow your point, they don't look back at you and say, yeah, I think that's really interesting, okay? They don't share your attention to something. So what I will do then tomorrow is talk a fair amount about the human pointing gesture and shared intentionality in general, the evolution of shared intentionality in the form of various kinds of cooperative activities that humans engage in with shared goals and joint attention. Then talk about communication more particularly with a lot of focus on the pointing gesture and the shared intentionality, the joint attentional frame in which it occurs, the cooperative motives for which it occurs, and then contrast that again with what the apes are doing once we get all the components out there. And in particular, in the comprehension mode, I think it comes out really clearly that when they what parts they comprehend and what parts they don't. And then I'll give a little bit of an evolutionary fairy tale about how these things might have arisen and what the interests of the signaler are and the interests of the audience, the communicator in the audience. So if I'm telling you, give me this, give me that, why is it in your interest to give it to me? And if I'm informing you, why is it in my interest to inform you of something? And so I'm going to try to talk about things like reputation and indirect reciprocity and so forth, to try to talk about how this more cooperative and helpful group life that humans engage in, and how that might have arisen, and what role cooperative communication might have arisen from it, and what role cooperative communication plays in it. And then Thursday and Friday we'll get to the kids. So that's it. Thank you.